Okay, so this is going to be our demo for the master copy, the background. This is the first step. So what I've already done on my own time is I've researched how Vermeer, who is the artist, paints this. I have my master copy, so my original right next to me, so I can work off of it. You always have to be referencing the original. Don't try to go rogue and do it without the original. It'll make a mess. I've got all my painting stuff set up, so my palette. I chose my palette in different browns and ochres because this is what my research told me Vermeer used. And so I've got all that done, penciled it on. Then what I started with is a background color. Okay, so this is my starting point. I chose ochre and brown because, again, that's what my research said he would start with his background. And then I know from researching that he does what's called a dead painting. And that means an underpainting. It's kind of like what I showed you when you guys were doing on plein air. So my first step then, now that I've done all my stuff, I know how he works and his methodology, and I know they're asking for an underpainting, is to look at my original, and I'm going to block in colors. So I'm going to block in areas. Now, what does that mean? When I'm looking at my original, there are areas that have shadow and that are very much light and dark. So for example, here, right? If I were to go there, this, like this is definitely a dark area. Under here is also a dark area. Right here on her nose, this is all dark, even into the eye. Okay, so above this eye. And then there's also areas that are pure light. So for example, right here, the rest of the nose, that's very light. Her eyeballs, right here is a light area. Right here on her lip too. Obviously the earring, but that highlight is going to be very, very last. And if you're looking here too, this is all light. So what you're trying to do is not look at the colors yet. You're looking at darks and lights. Okay? So my first step then is I have this. I'm going to mix it with a bit of water. I'm going to take my dark tone, which I'm using a dark umber because that's what he used. Mixing it down, and I'm going to work on, again, what's called the dead painting or the underpainting. So I'll just do a couple of sections in dark and light so you can see what I'm talking about. So I've got my image right next to me, and I know that this area is dark. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start blocking in and paying very close attention to the borders that the painting provides me. I'm going to start blocking this in as a darker area. Because I've already put a color down, these pencils are now locked in, so they're not going to be moving. It's a good idea to lock your pencils in because pencils do smudge with paint and it can really affect your color. So as I'm going through, I'm paying close attention on this painting to where the lights and the darks actually are so that I don't mess this up. The underpainting though, like if you do screw up the underpainting, it's not the end of the world. Again, it's just the painting that you're going to be referencing as a guide, and it gives a bit of depth to the other painting, to the painting as you build up colors on top of it. So this area is also dark by the nose. So you want to see what I'm seeing. So I'm going to go like this. Paying close attention to where those areas are. So another thing that this is also referred to some people as color blocking. Okay, because you're just blocking in areas of shadow and you're blocking in areas of light just to kind of set the tone for your painting. Okay, so normally, I'm just doing the face for your benefit. Normally, what would happen now, once I've done all this, is I would continue to block in the areas and just keep going. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to mix in and start doing the highlights just so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to put in the highlights. Normally I would finish the darks first and then start adding the highlights. But again, just for the sake of this, I'm going to put the highlights in. So now I'm taking my white and I'm putting in the areas that are the brightest white. Use a lot of water, like don't soak your brush, but as you're doing this, make sure that you're dipping it in water. You're not putting straight up paint on the canvas. You need to be working with washes. So, okay, this is very thinned out water and paint. If you use like a solid paint, it's hard to go over top of it. And pretty much what I'm doing, because my artist did, is I'm building up. Okay, so I want the paint to be a little bit translucent, a little bit see-through, because in the end, the only areas that are going to have like a solid splash of white or a really, really dark area are the areas that I'm creating, because I want those colors to be there. Okay, so it's about controlling. So right now I'm just adding in my highlights. Sometimes if you're having a lot of difficulty with this, a way to round it is to print out your image again in black and white and just use that as your shades so that you're not constantly having to look at your painting or look at your colors and try to guess whether those are light or dark. Okay. And then the last part of this, so again, once I put all the darks and the lights in, would be to create the darkest areas. So what I would do is make another wash, but again, still translucent, but darker than the medium one. And then that's where I'm gonna add in this dark wash to all the very, very darkest areas. So for me, right here, this is a very dark area. I'm gonna put that in. Okay.